Okay, welcome everybody to the Kingdom Politics Podcast. Oh, live stream now, and if you listen to it later, it's a podcast. I I am Pastor Will, and we're joined as always, this time remotely though, by Dr. Michael Huffman, and we are excited for today's show. We're going to dive back into Virginia a little bit more. We did the last couple of weeks on some federal level, some congressional candidates that are running for District 7, and now we're going to get back to what we've been doing for a few months now. It's like I think this is like the 23rd episode, by the way.
Yeah, we're getting it.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun too.
Yeah, it is fun. Yeah,
especially me. I'm coming to you live from Starbucks in Yorktown. I'm really suffering for Jesus in here.
Yeah, you are, because I got this nice studio all to myself.
Yeah, I was going to say you really sprawled out. When I come back next week, you gonna feel cramped again.
I know, I did sprawl out. I got hooked up this week. All right, so we're gonna look at something near to dear to both of our hearts, education, and in particular, a bill that got defeated last session, but it's already been filed for 2027. Well, it got continued to this 2027, so I don't know that defeated is necessarily the correct word, but
it got continued because it was unpopular.
Yeah. And again, this is like the point of the show, and the point of what you and I are doing is that you absolutely can make a difference in the legislative, because this was an incredibly unpopular bill. It's coming back again, so we're going to need people's help once again. And anyway, it's HB 359. It's Delegate Dan Helmer, and this is for private schools, or private elementary or secondary schools. So any private schools, use of public funds for tuition. And so what they're trying to do is it establish, I'll just read you the quick summary, establishes several requirements and conditions related to the use of certain public funds enumerated in the bill to fund student tuition at a private elementary and secondary schools in the Commonwealth. And it's requiring all students enrolled at the schools to take the standards of learning assessments, the SOLs, which those are going fantastic for the public schools. Requiring all such schools to receive accountability ratings. This is the scary part. Requiring all such schools to receive accountability ratings from the Board of Education. Prohibiting such schools from discriminating in admissions, enrollment, discipline, retention, or access to educational programs and services on the basis of race, color, religion, national origin, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, or expression, disability, special education status, language, proficiency, or social economic status. So I think if you're cool with it, Dr. Huffman, before we even dive into the bill, I think you have to look at the educational landscape in Virginia to start with, to understand why they're doing this in the first place.
Yeah. Well, you can speak more to that than I, because you've had a kid in public school for at least some period of time, and so you understand the efficiency of the educational system, in the public educational system in the Commonwealth.
Yeah, so people that don't know, two of the biggest counties in the state, Fairfax and Loudoun County, have had an interesting, I find it interesting. They've had a growth in population and a decrease in kids in public schools. The public schools, take iReady, for example, which is the reading program they use, or Lexia is the reading program they use. It's basically a computer game that is supposed to teach you how to read. iReady is the test that they use. It's not really a test. It's a computer program. It has already been proven to have 0%, literally zero, I'm not making this up, you can verify me, 0% improvement in children's reading. Not only that, currently the company that owns iReady, shoot, let me look that up real quick. The company that owns iReady, which is called Curriculum Associates, this isn't like a Fairfax or Loudoun thing either. Basically, every public school uses iReady. That company, Curriculum Associates, is currently being sued in federal court because they leaked. They were selling kids' profiles, and the public schools pay for that program.
Wow.
4th and 6th grade students in the state of Virginia, the majority of them are underneath the reading level that they're supposed to be at. They're underneath the standards for arithmetic or math, whatever you want to call it. They're under for reading, for comprehension, spelling, the SOLs. They have a 25% failure rate in the public schools across the state. Obviously, some schools, these are across the state. So obviously, in some areas, the public schools are fine, but in a lot of areas, they're not. And so parents in huge numbers are moving to homeschool or private school.
And of course, when they move their kids out of public school and put them in private school, the county loses money.
Yes.
Thus the bill.
Thus you get this bill. So instead of, and I know you testified and I testified on this bill the last year. I also wrote a letter to the education committee imploring them to use their time wisely and actually help kids and actually fix the public school system. This is a shortcut for them to get into the private schools because the private school kids overwhelmingly read above the standard of whatever grade level they're in. They understand math. They're above the standards in math. And the tests they take are harder than the SOLs.
Because the SOLs that they take, that's all they teach in the classroom is what's going to be on the SOL. So you've got 9 months, 8 months of test prep because, well, let's be real. The grades that you get on the SOL test in Virginia public schools depend on accreditation, and the accreditation of whether or not the school receives and maintains accreditation. And accreditation also has to do with the funding that school gets from the Commonwealth, which includes teachers' pay. And so at the heart of the matter, it all boils down to money, whether it be tax dollars or whether it be funding into the school or whether it be funding into the teachers' pockets. Now, that's not to say that there are not teachers in Virginia public schools that don't care, because there are those who do. There are those teachers that are good teachers. They care about the students. They care that the students receive a quality education. There are even teachers in Virginia public schools that are born again believers and love the Lord Jesus Christ. But the problem is, and what I have always said, is the problem is you cannot change the system. No matter how much you care, you cannot change the system. And so when you've got a system that basically studies for a test for 9 months, because that test is going to be the result of our accreditation, which will be the result of our funding.
Yeah, it's all money. It's nothing about the kids. And again, I'm going to do the same thing this year. I'm going to implore the education committee in Richmond to actually, you have the chance to do something good. And instead, they pretend like the public school system is the best. So to be fair, 15, 16 years ago, Fairfax County Public Schools legitimately was a really good school system. It's not anymore. But they're still hanging their hat on that. And when you listen to the education committee, not just on this bill, but anytime they're talking about the public schools, you would think that we're doing awesome, and we're not. And these kind of things are just way too important because we're leaving kids this whole like no kid left behind. So what they did instead was they just leave them all behind. Well, this kid can't read, so now none of them can. It's ridiculous.
We can't make this child feel like he's different or odd, so we have to make everybody ignorant.
Yeah, and they're so scared to like it. I could do 9 hours on the school systems. And to be fair, like I am very critical of the public school systems, and there are really good teachers though, that are out there in the public school system. So it's not, again, we're painting with a broad brush because the system of itself, it has to be taken down to the studs, and no one's going to do that.
Yeah, and instead of our leaders changing the system, they just want to add private schools into the system. Because, if we make all these requirements for private schools, well, then maybe the parents will go ahead and put their kids back in public school instead of paying that absorbent tuition to put their children in private schools.
Well, and even before we'll detail the bill here in a second. Before we even do that, though, here's what's going to happen: private schools are just going to stop accepting public funds, directly or indirectly, and so
that's
the kids,
that's going to be very difficult.
Yeah, because the kids that those public funds or indirect public funds are helping to go to these schools, the schools will just stop accepting it because otherwise they're going to have to be under the thumb of the state of Virginia.
Right.
And now what have they done? They've just displaced kids that are actually getting help. That's all they've done. It's the easiest consequence to see. I don't know how they can't see that.
Yeah. And of course, Dan Helmer, out of Fairfax. So his constituency is he's seeing that. He's seeing the increase in population, but the decrease in public education himself. And so Hero Dan needs to go to the General Assembly and fix the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, he needs to fix. He's going to make the problem worse.
Yeah, I say fix the problem. There is no, they don't think. And there's no fix when you got a D behind your name. There's only an exacerbation of the problem.
Yeah, they can't. This is where, like, we talk about it all the time, the social compact. Like, whether there's a D behind your name or an R behind your name, when it comes to the education of our children, it really shouldn't be that difficult. They should get the best education possible. Just the other day, Fairfax County Public Schools took a victory lap because they're removing computers from kindergartners.
Wow. Okay. That's a victory lap.
I wish I was making that up. They took a victory lap that they are some kind of. It's not a victory lap. They should have never had the computers in the first place.
Yeah. Wow. Some victory lap. Well, we've had, of course, that I have a Christian school in my church, and we've had students come to our school, Will, that were in honors math class in Virginia Public Schools that, I kid you not, could not do our 6th grade math. Was in honors class, was in honors high school math, but could not do our 6th grade math. Struggled. So when somebody comes to me and says they're an honor student at a public school, I'm not impressed, because I've seen their level of honors education.
Well, because they brought the standards down.
Yes.
So I can
it's
tell you,
it's sort of like what Christians have done to sin. They raise the level of righteousness personally by lowering the standard of sin. Okay, we raise our educational system standard by lowering. We raise our educational markings by lowering the standard.
Yeah. They when you're in 4th grade, you're supposed to be able to write 5 paragraphs. That's the standard upon which you're supposed to leave 4th grade. 0 chance they actually check the standard. And if you can't do it, they just let you go anyway. They don't help you. You just move on.
Yeah. And then before you know it, the lack of accountability to the standard is broadly known, and so then nobody worries about the standard, and then the standard just goes away.
Oh yeah, the standard just goes away. My kid used to get so mad at me because when he was in public school, he would come home and if homework wasn't filled out, I told him fill it out. And he would always tell me, well, the teacher isn't going to grade it. And I said, I don't care if she grades it or not. That's her business, but you're going to do your homework or your work in school. He never had homework, but his schoolwork. And yeah, there's no standards, and they just hire people that half the time are in over their head. But to be fair to the teachers too, they can't discipline the kids. And the kids just are running roughshod over the entire thing because they don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. Well, they're children. They don't. You have to guide them and lead them and teach them.
You have to form their feelings. That's why we've got a generation of mamby-pambies, because they were pampered to a unholy degree when they were children growing up. And so now we've got a generation of people that are too sensitive.
Yeah. Yeah, way too sensitive. They so there's no consequences. So anyway, let's dive into the bill so people know what it is. Again, it's HB 359. So we just wanted to set the stage, because the other thing, none of these bills are coming in a vacuum. There's a reason why they're doing this, and that's why we wanted to kind of set the stage of where everything's at right now. So, okay, let me pull up the actual bill. So what are your thoughts on this bill, sir?
Well, I've got some notes here. I'm going to try to do something here, and I might mess up.
I think you can share your screen if you want.
Yeah, well. I think I can only share in a browser. Try this one, but anyway, I'll figure it out some other time. But anyway, it basically the biggest one of the. There's lots of drawbacks to this. HB 359 would prohibit private schools from discriminating in admissions, enrollment, discipline, retention, and educational programs based on race, color, religion, national origin, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, disability, special education status, language proficiency, and socioeconomic status. Now, that's all that the bill says in a nutshell, and I think you've already alluded to that. One of there's several things that you mentioned that concern us about this bill. One of the things that concerns us is the fact that it says public funding directly or indirectly, and that's actually listed under the public assistance student under Section A, Section 1, subsection 6. Under the bill, under public assistant students, it says regardless of whether such school accepts tuition payments directly from the student's family or indirectly through an intermediary vehicle. Now, the question that you have to bring up that you can't get Delegate Helmer or anybody else in Richmond to admit to is that of course we understand what it means when it says if the family receives the money directly from the Commonwealth. But what is this intermediary vehicle? Well, one of the questions that I asked Delegate Helmer last year that he wouldn't answer for me was, what about if a family pays their tuition through disability? That's public funding. That comes out of a public funding pool. And he wouldn't answer the question, because the answer to the question is yes. If a family receives, we have students in our school, at my church, that I know that they're paying their tuition through disability that they receive from the Commonwealth. So by the language of this bill, the Christian school in my church received public tuition indirectly. And so we would fall under, even in residential rural Louisa, we would fall under the requirements of this bill. And so and what you need to think about is how many Christian schools out there are not even going to know that they're receiving public funds indirectly, because I doubt that there's any question on anybody's enrollment application, are you going to be paying your tuition through disability? Even if they paid the school from their personal account, that money was received from the Commonwealth. So that is an intermediary vehicle. That is what they classify in this bill as indirectly. So they're going to be, I would say, Will, that probably every Christian school, and that's what you and I are mostly concerned about. I mean, then let's be real, Will. The non-religious private schools can do what they want. They probably already are anyway, other than maybe the SOL requirements. If it's a secular private school, they're probably already receiving those people that are protected under the Virginia Human Rights Act, which we'll get to in just a minute. You know, they may not be doing the SOL requirements or anything like that this bill will require. But if it's a secular private school, they're probably already doing the gender identity and expression people anyway. So what you and I are concerned about are the Christian schools, and I would probably dare say that there's every Christian school out there receives public funding indirectly, and they don't even know it. And so, amongst the other things in the bill that concerns us greatly of the schools that it will affect, and then of course the requirements of the bill that it will require greatly concern us.
Yeah, one thing I just thought of too with this indirect. So they're doing it on purpose to say indirect because they're going to cover all the bases. But it's the hypocrisy and lack of transparency, because if you look at SNAP benefits or you look at the EBT benefits that are paid out, when people wanted to talk about what those funds were being used for, all you ever heard was, well, you can't. No, those that's their benefits, and you can't take soda or whatever. I don't remember the exact argument, soda and candy and all those types of unhealthy things. You can't limit those. But now on the flip side, you're using those funds to do something good and send your kid to a good school. And now all of a sudden, though, well, no, we need to know. So if the school takes that money, now all of a sudden the state gets their foot in the door. So I find that kind of funny that the logic doesn't work the same way, but the logic also doesn't work the same way when you look at, I was joking earlier when I texted you, but, everybody wants to cry about separation of church and state, and Christians need to stay in the, in the whatever, like not in the public square. Well, Christians have done that with Christian schools. We've said, no, our kids, and not every kid that goes to my son's school is a Christian, by the way. I would venture to guess. And so Christians have set up their own schools and have done it outside of the public school system. And now all of a sudden it's not so much separation of church and state anymore.
Right. And, we need to be aware, because when I brought this bill up last year to a group of concerned parents, and one of the remarks that I received from one of the parents was, well, I'm not worried about that. And I said, well, then why aren't you worried about that? Well, Trump will allow that to happen. And so I said, you do realize that there's a difference in federal government and state government, that Trump has absolutely no power at the Virginia Department of Education, and neither does he have power of any piece of legislation that's passed in the Commonwealth of Virginia. and unless, of course, it violates the federal Constitution. I mean, that's why we have a 10th Amendment. And so we need to make sure our viewers understand the fact that the federal government is not, if this passes, the federal government is not going to be able to fix it. Now, can they, would there be some threats? Maybe. There's really I don't think there really any federal funding that's going to amount to anything that could be threatened. But because it's all funded by the state anyway. So, the federal government can't fix this. So we need to be as adults, as concerned Christians, conservatives in the Commonwealth of Virginia, we need to be on board fixing this problem, because we can't rely on a conservative federal government, because help as they would love to, constitutionally they can't.
No, and also like there are school districts that receive federal funds, and they've gotten letters from the Department of Education in terms of investigations. We just saw the Loudoun County superintendent get pulled in front of Congress. It was before I went on vacation, I think. I don't remember exactly one on top of my head. But you know what? They haven't pulled the funding.
No. See, threats, that's about all it amounts to.
Yeah, they've threatened. They've got letters threatening to pull the federal funding, but they haven't done it yet.
No.
And that's for stuff that's in the public schools, not for this bill in particular, but for people that think that the federal government is going to come to the rescue, is not true.
Yeah. And so we need to be on top of this. We need to be on board, and we need to understand, and we need people to call. We need people to flood Dan Helmer's office with phone calls and emails now telling him you need to pull this bill, because this is not what we want. And we can give every Dan Helmer's contact information on this podcast before we end, if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, we can do that, because this bill is ridiculous. Because again, and you know what? Again, I implore the education committee, when they come back in session, please actually do something good for the kids. This is not good. This is messing with kids that are already in it. And you know what? For parents as well, my wife and I sacrifice a lot. And I'm not trying to be a martyr or anything, but because we're not the only ones, there's a lot of parents out there that are sacrificing a lot to send their kids to a good private school so that they can get a good education, so that when my son graduates high school, he can read, he can do math, and we're not asking for Harvard. We're asking he can just do what he's supposed to be able to do.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we need to be knowledgeable, and we need to be ready to defend, because this is not going to be good.
No, I'm trying to find the students' rights.
Now, also understand why you're looking for that will.
Here it is. Enforcement. The superintendent. So wherever your private school is, the superintendent of that area may conduct audits, investigations, site inspections of a participating private school to verify compliance with the provisions of this article. They are literally, this is what I was talking about, they are literally getting their foot in the door so that they can put the private schools underneath of the public schools.
Yes.
And the superintendent can impose one or more of the following penalties. Listen to this: suspension of eligibility to enroll new public assistance students, revocation of eligibility for up to 5 years, and civil penalties not exceeding $10,000 per violation. Or, and this is the hilarious part, or restitution of misused public funds. Let's please do an audit on our public schools and see the misuse of public funds.
Absolutely. So you're going to write a bill that's going to try to cause private schools, Christian schools, to pay back money to the Commonwealth if you didn't meet the SOL requirements.
Mm-hmm.
Can anybody say First Amendment?
Any penalty.
Yeah.
No. It's anything within the provisions of this bill.
Right. Well, that's just all we've talked about so far.
Oh, right.
But yeah, but no, it's everything, of course. But that's just all we talked about.
Yeah.
Plus civil penalty up to $10,000 per violation.
That's at the discretion of these crazy superintendents. And by the way, we just had a superintendent in Albemarle County get ousted for hiding sex crimes. The superintendent in Fairfax County just got her contract renewed for 5 years. She's the highest paid. She makes so much money, it's ridiculous. Let's see. Oh, here's a fun Fairfax fact for you. They could not give the teachers the raise that they promised them, but if you're an administrator, you can get your doctorate paid for.
Wow.
So where's the audits on those? I would love to see an audit on some of these public schools.
Yeah, exactly. Well, section 22.1-101.11 of the way that it will read if this bill passes, it says each participating, and of course you can read the bill under subsection A, each participating private school shall submit, now get this, an annual report to the department, that's the Department of Education, by October 1st, detailing enrollment, student demographics, academic results, graduation and dropout data, teacher licensure status, disciplinary incidents, and financial information. And the department shall publish each participating private school's report submitted. So it's not only goes to the Virginia Department of Education, but it becomes public information. I mean, we haven't even got to the bad stuff yet, Will. I mean, if you can believe that, we haven't even got to the bad stuff yet.
Yeah, I'm searching one public misuse funds that's going to make everybody super happy. I think it's going to take a second to find it all.
And then, of course, you also have to, so schools shall maintain student immunization and health records consistent with public school standards. So if public school standards require a COVID vaccination, guess who else will have to?
Yeah.
Private schools who receive public funding. So and here's employees and volunteers.
Here's a fun fact. We're talking about misuse of funds. How much do you think that Fairfax County Public Schools spent on outside legal services for the past school year?
Millions. I don't.
$12 million.
Yeah.
They got sued that many times.
Yeah, no wonder Dan Helmer wants to get money back from private schools. Fairfax is his own county is spending $12 million in wow.
Yeah, $12 million. But yeah, let's talk to the private schools about misuse of funds.
Yeah.
This is what I mean. It's just smoke and mirrors. Nobody fixes anything. They're literally the education committee.
And you also got in here where, of course, Dan Helmer, when we started complaining last year, he threw us a bone that said, well, your schools can still teach religion. So, I mean, this bill is, if not just targeting private schools, it is targeting Christian schools. He says, you can still teach your religious studies, but you have to allow students to opt out. So if you're a Christian school, you indirectly receive public funding because you've got a family in your school that the father or the mother or both receive disability, and they pay their tuition via disability. You have to allow students to opt out of religious classes, Bible reading, chapel services, anything having to do with religion. You have to allow them to opt out of those classes.
Yeah. And here's the operating, and see, this is how broken, so people understand, because I don't know how deep in the weeds people like to get, but just to show you how broken things are. The Virginia Public Schools, now this is the cost for the school to educate a child. The average statewide for Virginia Public Schools is $17,000 per student. Now in Northern Virginia, it's $25,000. So there is something to somebody needs to investigate. Now, for a private school, this is an average across the state of Virginia, that the operating cost is only $10,000. So in some areas, it's $7,000 less. And then in other areas, Northern Virginia, it's $15,000 less money to educate a child. And you know what the difference is? Admin. The administration and all of the different things that they've hired that just waste money that should be going to kids' education.
Wow. Yes. Yeah, just add more administration costs to it, but don't put it in the classroom.
No, that's what it is. It's administrative costs.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's more expensive in public schools than it is in private schools. You can't talk to anybody in administration in some of these county schools. Whereas you go to a private school, and this is the way education's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a partnership between the school and the parents. When you try to deal with the public schools, now my son did have one teacher, and she was awesome. So I'm not going to say her name, or I'm not going to say anybody's names, but she was awesome. And she really did try to help. It was just an untenable situation. But most of the time, they would treat you like you were a problem. If you asked questions, easy questions, like, how can I help you? Can you give me the textbook? Guess what? There are no textbooks. Can you send home some reading? Can you do this, that, or the other? It was always like I was the bad guy all the time, even though I was super nice and respectful. Now you go to a private school. If I need to talk to the principal, it's super easy. I just shoot her an email. She gets back to me. It's not a problem. All of my son, my son had medical issues in the fall time last year. He had to miss a little bit of school. They all sent his work home. No big deal. It wasn't a problem. To catch him up in the things that he had to get caught up in, we met with the teachers and had a plan, and we helped at home, and it was like it was supposed to be. It was the best experience.
Yeah, which is what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
But this is just ridiculous. And a school can appeal any type of penalty, but this is just ridiculous stuff, Will. For a private school, a Christian school, to have to give their financial records to the Virginia Department of Education, that's under the heading of none of your business. We are a religious institution. Like I said, Christian schools, especially those which is why I have always encouraged Christian schools to be under the heading of an actual church, because that gives you a level of protection that you don't have if you're not under a church. Because the First Amendment protects you, definitely protects you if you're under the heading of a church, because that would be considered the ministry of a church, and therefore is protected under the First Amendment. Now, I could make an argument in court that the religious school not under a church has that protection as well, but it's just kind of easier if it's under the church. And that's why I say it's a violation. This whole bill is a violation of the First Amendment. We have freedom of exercise, and part of that exercise, if a church wants to have a Christian school, they can have a Christian school. Because it's amazing to me how the progressives, the socialists, want to bring in the clause of the First Amendment, the Establishment Clause, and ignore the free exercise clause. They want to bring in the Establishment Clause when you want to read the Bible in public school classrooms, but so why isn't that Establishment Clause not valid when you want to bring the government into the Christian school? So if I want to bring the Bible into the government school, well, whoa, wait a minute, we got an Establishment Clause. Well, first of all, that's a completely misinterpretation of the Establishment Clause, because it says Congress shall make no law. It doesn't say that the Yorktown City Public Schools shall make no law, or Fredericksburg or Fairfax County Public Schools shall make no law. It says Congress shall make no law. So the misinterpretation of that is astronomical anyway. But if I want to bring the Bible into government schools, now all of a sudden there's the establishment clause. But if I want to bring the government into a Christian school, all of a sudden now we're going to forget about the free exercise clause. You can't have it both ways. And Dan Helmer is going to be reminded of that.
Yeah,
because so will the entire General Assembly.
It's rules for thee and but not for me, because I'm trying to find the bill right now. Give me 1 second, because Delegate Griffin, here it is. Delegate Griffin tried last year, HB 1146, to have the Ten Commandments displayed. Didn't happen.
Nope. Establishment clause.
Yeah. Now on the flip side, which, by the way, if Delegate Griffin watches this, I don't know if he does or not. I know he watches some of the clips. He is my son's favorite and watches all of his videos.
Yeah, very good. He's a good guy.
My son thinks he's really funny. He has good videos, and my son always looks at me and he goes, "Is he right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, he's right."
The interesting part about that is that I'm hoping he's going to bring that bill back, because my argument in committee is going to be, says, look, the Supreme Court has already decided this. They got rid of the lemon law and brought in historical tradition. And I mean, that happened back in 2019. So the Supreme Court has already ruled federally that 10 Commandments, nativity scenes, things like that can be on government property. Unless you can look at historical tradition to where they were banned, we're going to assume they are constitutional. That was the ruling from Brett Kavanaugh, who spoke for the majority on that back in 2019. And so, I mean, the point was the lemon law was basically having to do with if a religious practice is secular, then we will accept it as constitutional. Well, that's just silly. I mean, what religion? If a religious practice is secular, pardon me if I don't want to be a part of it. But then when they were hearing a case back in 2019, Brett Kavanaugh says, well, I think we need to get rid of the lemon law. And so they did, and we were just shocked. They did, and then they implemented the historical tradition. Okay? If you can't see in the past where this has been banned, then we're going to assume it's constitutional. So then 10 Commandments started going back up, crosses started going back up, nativity scenes started going back up. And so the Virginia General Assembly bypassing this bill, talk about going against federal law. I mean, they want to push their marriage amendment based upon a decision of the Supreme Court in 2015.
Yeah.
Okay, well, why don't you want to push Delegate Griffin's bill? Because of the Supreme Court, if no other reason, based on the Supreme Court decision in 2019. So again, you can't have it both ways, guys.
No, it's because it's Jesus, and we can go into the basis of the Ten Commandments being the basis for Western civilization. But if we look at that bill that they didn't allow to have happen, then they have this interesting part in Section 22. Of this bill right here, verse. I preach too much. Part C. A participating private school that provides religious instruction or worship shall provide a meaningful and non-punitive opt-out for any public assistance student whose parents request such an opt-out. The school shall provide a reasonable alternative educational activity during the period of religious instruction or worship, and shall not be penalized, disciplined, or otherwise discriminate against a public assistance student for exercising such an opt-out. Guess what parents had to do 2 years ago? They had to go all the way to the Supreme Court to get an opt-out in Maryland because they would not let parents opt out of LGBTQ books being read to kindergartners.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're going to write a bill to opt people out of religious studies, but not out of LGBTQ plus stuff. Give me a break. And once you bring in religion, Christian school, the Bible, you have just violated the First Amendment just by using those words. And, Dan Helmer wants to, A, depend on people's ignorance, B, depend on people's unwillingness to fight. and because he just wants to get his name on a piece of legislation. And you've said that so many times that just their idea is just to get their name on a piece of legislation so they can go back to their district and say, I did this, I did the other. And people in the Commonwealth of Virginia need to be enraged and stand up and fight back on this.
Yeah, they really should, because the opt-out,
because this is poised to pass.
It's ridiculous, because they think about all those young ladies that have to deal. They couldn't opt out of men coming in their locker room. Where's the opt-out for them? Nowhere. No protection, no nothing. All they do is then decide, well, you know what? This other system's working, so we need to take this one down too. It's just like, and the teachers need to get upset because your raises are sitting in admins' bank accounts.
Yeah. And under that same section, Will, that you just talked about, it's 22.1-101.6 is what the code section will be. It's going to be under the non-discrimination and admissions. You read line C.
C, yeah.
I'm reading line A. Participating private schools shall not discriminate in admissions, enrollment, discipline, retention, or access to educational programs and services on the basis of race, color, religion, national origin, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, disability, special education status, language proficiency, or socioeconomic status. And so now it reads a little bit different than it did last year. Last year it read those protected under the Virginia Human Rights Act, which basically what Dan Helmer did in the new version was he took the Virginia Human Rights Act that was passed back in 22 and was actually signed by Governor Youngkin, unfortunately, who shouldn't have signed it. But he basically took the Virginia Human Rights Act and broadened and just spelled out everyone that's protected. So what does that mean? That means that a school that directly or indirectly receives public funds has to enroll a boy that thinks he's a girl, and they have to call him by his preferred pronoun. They have to by this law. Now you're telling a Christian school that's protected under the First Amendment, not only of the federal Constitution, but the Religious Freedom Act that Thomas Jefferson wrote. You're telling them that they have to, if they receive directly or indirectly public funds, that they have to enroll a student and call a boy by his girl's name. That's what this bill would actually call for. Or if they don't, they have to pay back every dime that they received from federal funding, public funding rather, and or a $10,000, not to exceed a $10,000 fine per violation. So if you've got a family that has 4 kids that go there that pays their tuition by disability, and you refuse to enroll someone whose religious beliefs or practice does not follow your biblical beliefs, but yet you receive public funding from that other family, guess what? You're just looking at up to a $40,000 fine because you have 4 children in your school that receives public funding to pay their tuition. That's what we're looking at.
Well, that's why I said if you, it's just like the rent stuff. And it's already starting to happen because I've seen it with people that I know where you've got to show, you've got to basically have a rental rating now in some places to get a place to rent because they've made the whole thing a lot harder. And so the only people that are going to want to do it are corporations that have lawyers that can take care of it if you don't pay.
Mm-hmm.
The mom and pop, landlords are going by the wayside unless they have a good renter already because it's too difficult. They made it too difficult. And the same thing is going to happen in these schools if this passes, is instead of the kids getting help that they need and deserve to have, that kids need a good education. So instead of doing the hard work and actually doing their job as the education committee Instead, what they're going to do is they're going to make the private schools, they're just not going to accept any public funds. Because who's going to want to stare down a $10,000 fine per thing? Or who's going to want a superintendent from a public school coming in and saying, you're doing this wrong? When the superintendent's own kids, I don't know. Man, this stuff makes me so mad. I don't know how those people sleep at night.
Right.
I really don't.
I don't either.
And Delegate Helmer, I really wish I meant it in the letter that I sent last year. I really wish that they would use their time more wisely.
Yeah.
Like it took time this thing's 4 pages long. Somebody wrote it.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Why don't you go investigate and fix the public schools so all of our kids have a chance?
And I also want to bring up, because a question was raised to me about Title VII and Title IX, that's a federal law. And I just want everybody to know, and because that offers some protection about who a religious school can hire and who they can enroll. Now, we need to understand that Title VII and Title IX is for federal funding. Okay, we're not talking about federal funding. This bill is not talking about federal funding. It is talking about state funding. So there's a difference. We have constitutional protections. And again, Will, like we said on many issues, I think that a school could go to court and would win the battle, but they shouldn't have to. I mean, we're living in a day where our Constitution is being trampled over. Yeah, would we win in court? You shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to go to court to exercise the freedoms that your founding fathers have given you and that God has given us predominantly, especially when the socialists use portions of the Constitution incorrectly to help their own agenda. So it's not about a matter of, it's just like on the marriage amendment, it's not a matter of whether you would win or lose. It's about the fact that you shouldn't have to. And so, again, I just want to make it clear that, yes, there is Title VII, there is Title IX. People have brought that up to me, and we just need to be clear. I had a lady that's doing some work for us, Diane, do some deep diving into this for me today. And Title VII and Title IX are federal funding and not state funding, which is what this bill is calling for.
Yeah, it's just, here's one more part, 22.1-101, Part C. Participating private schools shall adopt anti-bullying and anti-harassment policies consistent with state law and report incidences to the department as prescribed by the superintendent. Guess where most bullying happens? Is public schools.
Yeah. When I testified in Rip Sullivan's bill, anti-bullying bill in private schools, was exactly what line C was saying. I said in 2023 to 2024 school year, there were 7,600 reported instances of bullying in the Virginia public schools and none in Christian schools. And I said in committee, it seems to me that the Commonwealth needs to take lessons from Christian schools about how to handle bullying, not try to tell us how not to bully when you're the one that obviously has the problem.
Yeah, not that it probably doesn't happen I can't speak for every private school, but they handle it.
Of course. I mean, people are people. People are, they're human nature. People are going to bully other people, but it's handled. It's not ignored like it is in public schools.
No, and I'm glad you brought up human nature, because it's human nature to have this hubris that whatever we do is correct and what everyone else thinks is incorrect.
Right.
And this bill is an exact example of that. Delegate Helmer thinks that whatever the private schools are doing is incorrect, and so thus the state needs to be part of it.
Taking his money.
Yeah, they're taking his money. But this is we're supposed to be humble. That's the great thing about following Christ is it comes with humility, and it comes with understanding that we don't have all the answers. God has all the answers, and maybe we can learn from, maybe the public schools can learn from the private schools. One of it, I can tell you one thing that would help is actually give the kids books to read. I can't tell you how many people, I wish you would have been with me in some of these meetings. I can't tell you how many people told me that there's a new way to teach kids to read. That's why I don't have hair anymore. It's not a new way to read. You just give them a book and you teach them how to read. It's not rocket science.
New way to read? Well, you give them filth and smut to read? Is that the new way to read?
No, they give them a computer program.
Yeah.
And then when you get older, you get the smut.
Yeah, it's just amazing to me, Will, that they did that. What you just said a few moments ago, that they would not give, that people had to go to the Supreme Court to get an opt out for LGBTQ plus. But Van Helmer is going to give them an opt out of religious classes in this bill if you receive public funding.
Yeah, I know that really happened.
Wow.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, you and I are in different locations today, but not that far. Just on the other side of the Potomac in Maryland, that happened. The parents had to come together and take Montgomery County Public Schools was who it was. They had to take them to court, and then they had to go all the way to the Supreme Court to get it opt out. And by the way, like, they weren't even asking the schools to not teach it. All they were asking for was an opt out. That was it.
Well, I remember when I was in, I went to public school up until I was in the 8th grade. And when I was in the 6th grade, my middle school started teaching family life.
Yeah.
And I didn't take family life because my parents called the principal and said, Michael's not going to be in those classes. It wasn't a letter written. It wasn't a board meeting held. My dad called the principal of the middle school and said, Michael is not going to be in those classes. And guess what Michael didn't do? Michael never took those classes. Now you'd have to go to court to opt out of those classes.
I think it depends on so my son, the last year he was in public school, I should have kept the slideshow. I could have showed everybody. To be fair to the school, I asked for it and they gave it to me. That's the only time they ever. I think they just didn't want to fight me anymore. And so I told the teacher, I said, "Hey, my kid's not going to be there that day." No, I didn't specifically ask for an opt out or anything. I just flat out told the teacher, "Not happening." It was incredibly inappropriate. I can't remember everything on there, but it was incredibly inappropriate for a 4th grader, the things that they were going to say. And, what they tell you is that, and this is the danger of all of this stuff. What the schools will tell you is that, oh, well, we want them to be prepared. Well, no, I don't want you to teach my son these things. I want him to be 10. When it's time for him to learn the things that you would like to teach him, I will do it for you so that it's done correctly. But until then, I want him to be 10. I want him to like, at the time he liked Pokemon. Like, I want him to like these things. I don't want him thinking about what you're going to talk to him about. This is inappropriate. He's not there. But that's what they'll tell you, though. They'll tell you, well, sir, we just want your son to be prepared for what life has ahead of him. Yeah, so do I, but he's not at that point yet.
No. He's 10-year-old does not need to learn the details of sexual expression.
No, and the Maryland thing, they were reading LGBTQ books in kindergarten.
In fact, Will, you know the best time to teach your kids sexual expression? Your kids learn sexual expression on their honeymoon.
This is how much of a. I think you know him. You know Mike Young, right? Noble Warriors.
Yeah,
I love Mike. And last year, me and my son went and saw him to see him speak. I forget where. And Mike's awesome. And but Rowan was the only young kid there. He was like the youngest one there. And Mike was talking about praying for your kids to find someone later in life and he stared at Rowan and said, "Even you, we need to pray even for you to find a wife one day." And my son was so embarrassed that he was like,
That he
"No,
was.
never."
Yeah.
And then he told me later he was never getting married, and I said, "Son, that's what every man has said at 11 years old ever."
That's it. Yeah. You change your mind real quick.
Oh, exactly.
You do reach the age where girls don't have cooties anymore.
So this bill's coming back. It's now I got to pull back up his stuff.
We got our work cut out for us already, Will, because like you said yesterday, there's over 430 bills that have already dropped, and this is unprecedented because they usually don't start dropping bills until after Thanksgiving. And so this is unprecedented that they've already dropped bills for this year in the summer. I thought that maybe this being an election year, or next year being the election for 27 being the election for the House of Delegates and the Virginia Senate, that they might behave themselves a little bit, but it doesn't appear that they're shaping themselves up to behave themselves at all, which tells me that they're very confident that they're going to hold and maybe expand their majority in the Senate, and maybe, who knows what they're thinking about in the House. But I think you said it was over 430 bills yesterday.
Yeah, it dropped yesterday, the data dump, like 430 plus. It was less than 500, but it was still a lot. And it just, I think, I don't know. I think we're headed down a really hard path in Virginia, and I really pray that people will start paying attention, because I think they're going to try to do as much as they can while they can. Because a lot of these things were super unpopular. Obviously, people got really upset about the 2A stuff. Those all went to court. The redistricting was super unpopular. That went to court. Lord knows how much Jay Jones is paying in outside legal fees right now. I don't know.
Because it's not like he knows how to do it. No, you're paying it, and so am I. It's not like he knows
how. I know.
It's not like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I'd like to see that bill. How much taxpayers' money is going to outside litigation.
Yeah. Because remember when the redistricting amendment went to the Virginia Supreme Court, he hired counsel out of California. So you're the Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Virginia, and you hire an attorney from California to interpret Virginia's Constitution and statute. Give me a break.
Well, and it's crazy for taxpayers because we have to sue, like you were talking about, is ridiculous. We have to go to court so much, but they have no respect for the Constitution. But so now you have to have a lawyer yourself. So you're paying for that, but you're also paying for their lawyer too.
Crazy.
It's craziness.
Absolutely crazy. Well, I want to mention one more thing while we're here, and that is there's been some confusion, and I was in a meeting. I've been in several meetings, that there's been some confusion on the restoration of rights amendment that's going to be on the ballot in November. A couple of points that we want to highlight is we are not, absolutely are not against second chances. We understand the fact that people can change. People do change by the grace of God. Only by the grace of God do people change, and we understand that, and we believe in second chances. However, just like elections have consequences, sometimes our actions have lifetime consequences. If you get drunk and go down the road driving a car and you're in a car accident and your leg is amputated and you repent and get saved, that's great. God has forgiven you, but he probably is not going to grow you a new leg because it's consequences to your actions even after Christ. So we understand that at the same time. So that is why we believe that the restoration of rights should stay in the hands of the governor on an individual basis. Now, the point of former delegate, now Senator Bennett Parker and Senator Locke, when she patroned that bill, it was all about race. With Mamie Locke, it was all about Jim Crow. It was all about the black man doesn't get his rights given back as quickly as a white man does and all that. Ironically enough, Don Scott, the Speaker of the House, his rights were given back by a white Republican governor, Bob McDonnell. So I'm not quite sure how she doesn't, can say that with a straight face. But anyway, that's what she said. But each case needs to be taken by an individual basis. I have friends that were convicted of a felony that was a non-violent felony. The problem with this restoration of rights, and it says in the bill under subsection 1 that they are not entitled to vote during any period of incarceration for such felony conviction, but every person upon release from incarceration for that felony conviction and without further action required of them shall be invested with all political rights, including the right to vote, and all those rights that come, all those civic rights, just short of being able to own a firearm. Now, the problem with that is they do not list a difference between. Well, let me put it this way, Will. I would have less problems with this bill if it separated violent from nonviolent felons convictions. If this bill was just immediately restoring the rights back for nonviolent felonies, I don't know that I would have as much of a problem, but it doesn't make that distinction. And so what you've got felons that have been or just released from prison. Now, again, it doesn't mention restitution and it doesn't mention probation. So these people do not have to fulfill their probationary period. All the bill says is that they have to physically not be in prison. They have to physically not be incarcerated. And once they are not incarcerated, then they immediately, without any further action needed by themselves, they will have their rights given back to them. What does that mean? That means that a murderer or a rapist who is released from prison, he may be on probation, he or she may be on probation, but they're physically released from prison. They have all their civil rights back, which means they can vote, they can sit on the jury, and they can run for public office. So if this passes, it is likely that we could have murderers and rapists, child sexual predators in the Virginia General Assembly making our laws, because that's what this amendment will allow. And I think this amendment hasn't gotten the attention that, of course, you and I've given it the attention it needs. But I think in a broad way, this amendment hasn't gotten the attention that it needs, because I still have people that are a little confused about the language, and it's more so what it doesn't say than what it says, because it says physically released from prison, incarceration, without any further action on themselves, they get their rights back. Now, again, if it made a distinction between violent and nonviolent, then okay, we may not have the same issue, but it doesn't make that separation. A murderer, a rapist, a child rapist gets his rights back immediately upon leaving incarceration, just like a person who wrote bad checks. There's an issue there.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm looking at it now. I don't have a problem if the governor. I agree with you. If we left it with the governor, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume the governor is doing, in this case, her due diligence on each person, whether she does or not, who knows. But as an elected official, I would pray that she takes it serious. The problem I have,
case by case basis, because you have to, because the governor then can decide, okay, was this a violent or non-violent felony?
Right. Yeah, same thing with like a pardon, whether it's the governor or the president. I guess, and maybe we can talk about it next week. The issue I have with this one is the same issue I have with I forget the bill number, but the where they're taking away the minimums.
859, HB 859 or 853.
Yeah, we have to decide what kind of society we have. These are society, same thing with the abortion one, same thing with the marriage one, and this one as well. We have to decide what kind of society are we going to have. Are we going to have a society where people are safe, where there's rules to follow, and that we're all following the rules? Because we already pointed out with the school bills, the school bill that we looked at, that there's a double standard when it comes to Christian, and there's a double standard when it comes to secular. Secular, they can do whatever they want. There's no opt out. It's fine, right? We have to decide what kind of society we're going to have. Are we going to have a social compact where we decide, look, these violent felonies, this is not okay. This is not a function of a moving society in the correct direction. Just a few days ago, Fairfax County arrested someone with 200 charges. That's insanity. And this bill, I don't have a problem. I used to do prison ministry. I've been in the trenches and helped people find those second chances. And the only redemption there is within Christ. But when we look at society, we have to have, and this is what I wish the delegates would do, is have a conversation of, okay, what kind of society we're going to have? Because if we're going to do the socialist thing, there is no crime unless it's, proclaiming the name of Jesus. And then that's what we're going to do, because that's what we have to decide. What do we have now? When you automatically get those rights back, I don't know that you paid your debts to society. Should be the governor's decision. I think if it's a violent felony, you never get it back. It's not to say you can't be saved, but there are consequences for your actions. It's not to say you can't even go to heaven. Jesus pays all your sins. But when we're talking about like you were talking earlier about human nature, what is human nature? Well, human nature is sinful. And the reason why there's consequences for felonies is because it's supposed to prevent you from prevent a large number of people from doing them. It's never going to fix, you're never going to have a crime-free situation. So the answer isn't to just let it all go then. But where is the safety for people? If you get your rights back, what's there to stop you from doing it again? Particularly when you add this with the minimums being taken away. Well, now you get convicted. Even with a felony, you're suspended. Your sentence is suspended, and you get your rights back right away. You walk right back out the door. What was the consequences for the violent felony or any kind of felony involving a child? I'm sorry, but those two things, a violent felony or anything involving children, I have a hard time thinking. Again, through Christ, everything is possible. But we also have to have standards in our society, and we have to have standards. And that's the discussion I would like to have with progressives is, okay, well, that's fine. If this is your idea, then where is your idea of society? Where is the social compact? Because the purpose of government is to secure the rights of the people. Well, my rights aren't secure now if violent felons are just getting walked right back out the door. So I don't know, man. That was a longer answer than I anticipated, but maybe we could do that one next week.
Well, what you bring up, the violent offenders. I mean, just over the 4th of July weekend in Louisa County, there was a man that was in the U.S. illegally, and now he's now he is facing charges for the murder and sexual assault of the 2-year-old child of his girlfriend. And he was in the country illegally. Should someone, let's say, for example, he was a citizen, should someone like that have their civil rights restored back to him? I would say no.
Would agree.
That is whether the governor did it or whether it just became immediate upon your release from incarceration. In fact, I would say that a person who does that to a child, you get life without. We get a life without the possibilities of parole. And so if you do that to a child, you'll never see the light of day again. But that's one of the, you brought up Ray Cousins' mandatory minimums. Unfortunately, that is one of the charges that she is looking to reduce the mandatory minimum, is the sexual assault, including that of a child. And it's unfathomable to me, Will.
Yeah, it makes no sense to me. And that's where I would I would really like to hear the reasoning behind it. But they have no reason because they don't think about any of this stuff. They just go to their leftist ideology and they go, look what we did. We got your rights back and we got rid of the minimums, but they don't look at the consequences of what's going to be unleashed. Same thing with the private school bill. They're not looking at the consequences that will be unleashed. It's just not well thought out, and they just ramrod through, and they all vote in the same way. I mean, we both know, we've seen it. They all vote the same and all this and that, and it's just, again, it's like the social compact thing. Like Democrat or Republican, like some of these things should be bipartisan, and instead we're tribalistic and faction oriented. The education of our kids. Obviously my kid goes to Christian school. I would prefer that there's a Bible class, but it's a bipartisan issue though. They should be able to read. They should be able to do math. I don't think that's asking a lot, but it is.
Not at all. And, talking about the mandatory minimums, also, you've probably already seen this, but also see where they have already filed, HB 853 already for the 27 session, and that is the petition for the modification of sentences. So that's already been filed to coming back as well.
Yeah. So all the stuff.
I didn't know if you had seen that or not.
Yeah, we'll have to start highlighting some of this stuff. But all right, sir, you got any plugs or anything?
No, just if you have any questions, if you go to www.vaib.org, of course, we're in early voting now for the Senate and the congressional. Of course, everybody probably saw VAIB's video, hopefully yesterday, where Mark Warner got on ABC and just lied to everybody about voter ID in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And what he didn't plan on was that the anchor that was the news guy that was interviewing him was a Virginia voter and can actually say, no, actually, Virginia, Senator, you're wrong. You don't have to show photo ID. And so was that incompetence or was that him lying? Well, if the answer is yes to either one of those questions, it's not good. I personally think it was a lie. I don't think a man who sits in the Senate that long is that ignorant of processes. Yeah. So I think it was a lie. So we're in the early voting for the Senate, also in early voting for all 11 congressional districts. If you go to www.vaib.org, we have broken down all 11 congressional districts for the Republicans, and we have broken down all 3 Republican candidates for Senate on that. As well as we also have a tab there on the left where you can look at the abortion amendment video, the same-sex marriage amendment video, and I have a new section that was just added today, the abortion amendment exegesis, where we actually break down and highlight the main points of the abortion amendment and tell you exactly what that means from a legal standpoint, what that could actually do in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So you need to go there and look at that at vaib.org. If you have any questions, you can email me at Dr. Michael at kingdompolitics.org or director at vaib.org. We're having our annual conference in September, 24th and 25th. Go to vaib.org, go to the conference tab, and then click on the register here button and tell us that you're coming. It's free of charge. We're going to feed you, Will.
I'm always there. Free food.
Absolutely. You can't go wrong with free. And it's good food too. We cater it in, and we have it the same church the last several years, and the best part about it is I don't have to turn a finger. I get there and everything is done. The tables are set up, the food is cooked. All I have to do is show up and make sure everybody's where they're supposed to be.
That's awesome. I'll be there.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, just check out the kingdompolitics.org. Follow us on the various social medias. We got some plans over the next couple months to roll some stuff out. Like and subscribe, follow, all of that good stuff. Share.
Yeah. Yes.
point people toward this way. And we're trying to get people organized and Christian organized. We pointed out this private school bill, and what will stop it is Christians and making their voices heard. And we can help you do that. Just head to the website, thekingdompolitics.org, click on the Get Involved tab, and there's a little thing to fill out. We're not asking for any money or anything like that, just asking for help. And we can point you in the right direction to actually make a difference. Not just we're not just saying that. This bill got tabled last year, it can get tabled again. By the grace of God, we go. All right, we'll close a little Spurgeon, and we'll see everybody next week.
All right.
And I heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send? And who will go for us?" And I said, "Here am I. Send me."
Rise up, Christ one, only bow to his throne, Satan. Try and temper, he